The government moves into reconstruction in the recovery phase. I'm Clint Watson. We'll tell you all about it coming up in the Bahamas tonight.
Number bosses donate more than $250,000 to the hurricane relief effort.
And a well-known attorney before the courts today. Find out why. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Government announces plans to begin the next phase of recovery for hurricane victims. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charisma Robinson.
And I'm Chris Saunders. Thank you so much for joining us. It comes on the heels of an overwhelming response to relief efforts. Today, Cabinet met to discuss the cost to rebuild and how funding will be obtained to complete the process. Meantime, the private sector is coming forward and assisting with temporary homes. Here's Clint Watson.
The response to the need to help residents affected by Hurricane Joaquin has been great. Now government is preparing to shift gears into the next cycle, the reconstruction process. Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, made the revelation to ZNS News that his cabinet will make some critical decisions that will support the reconstruction phase.
That is the reconstruction of the infrastructure. BTC and BEC are working towards that end now, but they're the roads, they're the bridges, they're the homes, and the construction and reconstruction of people's homes, and the advice that we're going to need as to where people should build.
Today at a news conference with web shops donating to NEMA, the Prime Minister gave more details on how the reconstruction phase will work.
We have assembled a reconstruction team headed by a former director of works, Melanie Roach. We have secured separate accommodation because NEMA itself will not have the physical capacity to house this team. And this team will be working in furtherance of the work of NEMA, specifically to the element of restoration, being able to, in the shortest possible time, restore as near to normalcy as possible, both infrastructurally and in point of view for the personal damage experienced by persons.
Meantime, the Prime Minister was pleased to announce temporary housing through trailer homes, a donation by Island Lock. CEO Sebas Bastian says NEMA will decide who will get the temporary homes.
They are fully equipped with a fridge, stove, air conditioning, beds to sleep in. They're portable, so you can hook them up in the back of a trailer. Truck and pull them where you want them to go, so you can relocate them at your disposal. They're about 33 feet long, 10 feet wide, so it's pretty comfortable. It's pretty comfortable to actually stay in.
The government has determined that there is an acute need for such homes. We are currently in Cabinet discussing this matter.
En route to Crooked Island are also portable tent cities to help residents and officers on the ground, particularly in Landrell Point.
In the next 48 hours, operational, this little city or little camp with the capacity to meet the needs of Crooked Island insofar as the people on the island are concerned. And that is in terms of food. They're capable of preparing hundreds of meals a day in terms of a kitchen that is, and cooking facilities that are part of the containers, water, hundreds of gallons, thousands of gallons a day that they're able to produce, desalination, using the process of desalination. So they will hook up hoses to the sea and desalinate the water for delivery to people who are in need of it.
Now, ZNS News can reveal that the government is working on several new and creative innovations, according to Prime Minister Christie, that will be introduced during the reconstruction and in the recovery phase. Issues and ideas that they've adopted from other countries like the U.S. that will bring creative ways to generating income and dealing with those who have been affected by the storm. Those announcements will be made at a news conference on Wednesday. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
The exigency order is in place that allows for exemptions on goods imported for recovery and rebuilding purposes following the destruction. The affected islands, namely Acklins, Cat Island, Crooked Island, Exuma, Inagua, Long Key, Long Island, Mayaguana, Rum Key, Ragged Island, Zamana Key, San Salvador, who suffered hardship or loss as a result of the hurricane and whose claims applications in respect of such goods are certified by the Director of the National Emergency Management Agency. The Minister of Finance declares that the import of goods specified is permitted for 90 days starting October 3rd. The minister further declares the waiver of landing fees, departure tax for non-commercial flights, bringing in relief goods, and customs processing fees on imports in the affected islands for 1 month, also starting October 3rd. The islands of Acklins, Crooked Island, and Long Key have been declared sufferance port areas for 3 months, also starting October 3rd. The list of approved duty-free goods are building materials, plumbing fixtures and materials, household, furniture, furnishing, and appliances, generators, and motor vehicles. The public is further advised that customs duty and VAT exemption will only be granted to registered charitable organizations and individuals whose loss from Hurricane Joaquin has been verified by NEMA. In reference to motor vehicles, exemption will be based on the market value of the vehicle destroyed on the date to the hurricane, which must be turned over to the Customs Department. The Minister of National Security toured 2 islands hard hit by the storm.
Long Island and Crooked Island, both tonight, are still suffering from the ravages of that system.
The Minister of National Security, along with NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell, made a tour of some of the southern islands. Their first stop on the assessment tour, Long Island. There they were met by the Deadman's Key Airport by local government officials and residents who were eager to tell their stories of storm survival. One of their first stops, the local primary school, where instead of chairs, mud and muck take a central space. Rooms once used to greet students now sit with sludge and slush in the center. Francis Darville, who owns Under the Sun, the major houseware store in the area, says he's still in a state of amazement at the damage not only to his business, but the whole island.
Disbelief, awe. I can't think of words to describe what I felt. It's nothing else I can say.
Darville says that, like most Long Islanders, he will rebuild, but he says the whole island has to be rebuilt for full restoration.
I had a guy from Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, and he said they're going to try to solicit funds to help the businesses out, because he said, people are going to help the individual homeowners and stuff like that, but he said without the businesses, what's the sense of having homes? You need the businesses for the community to survive.
Like most of the island, the terrain is wind-scorched. What was once green, now drab and diseased-looking brown. Water levels in some flood-prone areas still sit brackish.
The water out here, right past Hetty's, it's almost red, and it has a scent to it. It's an unfamiliar scent, almost like dead leaves that's been sitting for a while, and essentially that's what it is. As you can see, it's coming up over the Jeep to a certain extent, and you can just see the redness just kicking up, almost like rusty water.
Waves still wash into some homes, abandoned since the storm passed. At the community center, which now doubles as a command center and distribution point, things are calm today. Supplies, though, are still needed every day to go out. Mary McIntosh is one of them who receives aid. She hopped from home to home as the storm tore down each structure. Mary and her family are left with very little, and she was sure her time had come during the storm.
I said, help us. I said, we go now. I said, Lord, be with us and guide us. At times, when one part of the house started to break down, we tried to hold it up, but then when we looked, the next part coming on, so we had to run for our life.
They say you should build on the hills, but in Long Island, in South Long Island, the houses on the hills caught as much out from the wind as the houses in the basin caught from the rain.
On Crooked Island, the destruction is more widespread.
Here in Crooked Island, the water's a whole lot different. It still has that same stench, but it's a lot higher in this area. As you can see, we're in a very big SUV and it's still problematic getting through.
The Defense Force has moved in to help clear areas. On the beachfront, boulders were lifted out of the ocean and into homes. The gas station sits under rubble that just a few days ago was on the bottom of the sea. Marines are working to get normalcy restored.
I think they've done a lot of work and there's a lot of work to do because, we have something like 14 large containers that have to be located on this site to establish a base camp.
Soon more relief and more supplies will be coming to these hard-hit islands like many others, and the residents are grateful for the help.
The Minister of Transport and Aviation, the Honorable Glenys Hanna Martin, who is responsible for the Department of Meteorology, is commending the unit for its work ahead of and during the storm.
And then it's a hurricane, they hardly sleep. They watched it very carefully. They're Bahamians just like us. They live here just like us. They have a vested interest in doing all that they can to ensure the interests of our people are protected. This hurricane, I'm advised, was particularly erratic and unpredictable, defied all of the predictions, all of the models. And in fact, I'm advised that the Hurricane Center had advised the Department of Meteorology that no warning or alert would have been necessary for the area that was in fact terribly impacted. And they, if I could use the term, broke ranks and went ahead and gave the warning, even though that was not their advice, because they used their own judgment in the interest of our people. And as a result of that, well, it was fast coming, it was unpredictable, it was described as drifting and wobbling, and the end result is what it is. It tells us that, we have to, being in a hurricane zone as we are, that we have to be extremely vigilant all times, even if it's, if it looks like something you can discount. It's something that we have to ensure that we keep our P's and Q's because we are peculiarly vulnerable.
Hanna Martin says our Met officials have also received commendation from regional counterparts.
Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, who were here recently in a briefing with NEMA, took the opportunity to commend the Department of Meteorology for the work that they did and for the actions they took in giving out the warnings when that was not their advice to do so, and observed that the meteorologists in the region were watching this storm, and out of that has come a commendation for the department. So I want to throw my commendation to them also for the good work that they've done.
Member of Parliament for Michael, the Honorable V. Alfred Gay, says restoring power for residents in the Michael constituency will be an ongoing task for BEC. He anticipates it will be some time before electricity is fully restored to Crooked Island, but says the majority of Acklins has been restored except for Salina Point.
There is one wire separating electricity from no electricity. And if I could use this medium to make the appeal to ask Mr. Ellis from Langeal Point to please go by boat, helicopter, whatever. And if I need to get involved in it, I certainly will. But I need somebody from BEC to go to Salina Point to connect that single wire that will cause them to have electricity. Just one wire blew down, and that prevents the whole settlement from having that required electricity.
Donations are continuing to pour in to help hurricane victims. Today, employees of the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources donated to the effort a wide range of goods. Making the donation was the minister himself, V. Alfred Gray. Initially unaware of the collection of items by his staff, Gray noted that he was humbled by the gesture.
I am humbled by that because no one knows better than I do how impactful that hurricane was on the lives of the people, and it is not ever the amount of what is given. It is always the spirit with which it is given. And so in that vein, Captain Russell, I humbly present this collection of goods and clothes and shoes and whatever is behind me as sample. There is a greater amount to be collected.
Director of NEMA, Captain Stephen Russell, assured Minister Gray that the items will be distributed to those residents for whom they are intended.
This is a wonderful sign. I think the entire Bahamian public has been most generous and in their support to those persons in the islands that have been impacted. But to find a single ministry coming together in such a timely fashion and putting together such a collection, it speaks well of the spirit of the Bahamian people and assisting those in distress in times of disasters. So with your ministry and other agencies, things look very good for the islands that have been impacted. They would have supplies for a long time. They could take them well into next year, the supplies that are on stream and the supplies that are coming on stream.
Representatives from the Gaming House Association in the Bahamas made a substantial donation to NEMA today. The presentation of a check for $257,552 was made to assist with the restoration and recovery efforts of hurricane victims. Prime Minister the Honorable Perry Christie noted that the donation comes in addition to the individual relief efforts by each web house. Peter DeVoe made the presentation on behalf of the group.
We, the Gaming House Association, would like to present this check to NEMA on behalf of all of us. There are many of us represented here from all the number houses. Just like to present this to you.
The government, in its vision for gaming in the Bahamas, ensured that the legislation provided for contributions to social causes. Specifically for persons who may have some kind of harm attributed to habits forming in gaming, but also to social causes generally. This is obviously a matter of extreme urgency in our country, and I have here the director of NEMA, Captain Russell, Stephen Russell, who I will pass this check to.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the new Shell & Letty, designed for extra miles.